So that is a project flow, and that is my attempt to emphasize the importance of chronology, the idea that there are steps. We spend a long time at Cambridge teaching students the concept of chronology in research. What do you need to do first? Okay, now that said, and having an understanding of chronology, what we're going to do is we're going to learn about research and we're going to do your research simultaneously. So what you're looking at in front of you is a chronology. In other words, this is my understanding of the process and the order in which I must conduct my research. Now, all universities will have their own requirements of how things are done. However, what you see before you will cover 99% of the university's requirements, okay? Because the requirements are very universal. There is an accepted process, an accepted order. Now, the software helps us. If we look at our project, we will see that this project flow has been created. Now, how do we do that? Well, once we enter in, give our project a name. Once you log on, you'll be invited to give your project a name. In my case, the project is called Demonstration because it's a project that I use for demonstrating to my students. So what I'm going to concentrate is on how do we construct the project flow. I would invite you guys at this point to maybe take a screenshot or a picture of that screen so you're aware of what this project flow looks like. And I'm going to show you how you get to this project flow, okay? Now, so you've logged onto your computer, you've entered your username and details, you've got a screen in front of you that asks you just to give your project a name and a description perhaps. And once you've done that, you will come to this screen, but it will be blank. There will be an edit button. And when you click on the edit button, you'll be faced with a completely blank page, which I have populated here. Okay. Now, how did I populate it? For that blank page, you click on any of the empty boxes. Now, when you click on an empty box, again, you click on the first box and you're faced with two options, hypothesis testing or THW. THW means thesis writing. I think that's one of the questions in the chat box. Now, we are interested in writing a thesis. We are interested in doing some research. So we click on thesis writing and we are presented with all of these applications, okay? Now, when you click on any of these applications, let's just say candidate, I click on candidate, application will appear in the box. So we click on the empty box, we click on the first box once again. We are interested in thesis writing. And let's say I was interested in this application here of thesis permission. If I click on that, you see it has downloaded that app to our project. Now, if I close that, the app has appeared here. Now, as it happens, this is not, we are only interested with the basics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, if this was the app that was required, it would be downloaded here. And again, I can edit and I can then click on the next box and I can place an arrow. So we are only interested in these two boxes. I click on the next box. Options open to me. I will select the second arrow here, which is there. and it has now placed an arrow there. And again, we have another empty box. Now, if I click on the next empty box and the first option once again, we are still interested in thesis writing. And again, the applications open to us. Okay. Now, I'm going to quit from that, back to here, and I'm going to delete this one. This orange button here has a dustbin that allows me to delete. And I'm going to click on this arrow here. And again, there's a dustbin there to delete. And I'm back to my original project flow. So what students should be able to do after leaving this session is, if you have taken a copy of these, this project flow, you should now be able to go to your account, log on, give your project a name. It will invite you to give the project a name and description. Keep it very short because there are limits to the number of characters. And you will enter into your empty page from which you can create your project flow. I would invite you to create a project flow that looks identical to what you see here. Therefore, you should have taken a copy of this project flow because it is a standard project flow which we can later adapt as we require. Now, all these apps here, you'll find in the options that opened out. Now today, for the next few minutes, I want to concentrate on the first couple of apps. You see what I'm saying? What I'm saying with this project flow is that there is a chronology. Let's just take a look at that. What's a chronology? Chronology means a order. A is completed, then B, then C. It makes sense. You know, when you're building a house, you don't build the roof first. You build the foundations. Then you build the walls. Then you build the roof. That means there is a chronology from A to B to C. In the same way, with research, there is a chronology. If you get the order correct, your research process makes perfect sense. If the chronology of the order is incorrect, when it comes to defending your research, you're going to struggle. Okay? So let's get it right at the beginning so that when we have to defend our PhD and graduate, we don't have any difficulty in defending the work that we've done. Let's take a second. We're going to look at the chronology of this project flow that I've created. Now, the chronology is a very simple one. Let's talk through it and try and understand, try and internalize. Does it make sense to do things in this order? If your research is not being done in this order, you need to ask yourself some serious questions. Because again, when it comes to defending your work, you're going to run into problems. So what am I saying? I'm proposing the following order. The candidate app is simply identifying you as a candidate. Who are you? Now, once you've identified yourself, you start on your research process. Common error here is the students say, I want to research ABC. What is the impact of training on, let's say, employee satisfaction in small and medium enterprises? Now that sounds great, but there's a little problem there. When you face your defense and you have to defend your research, the first question you're going to be asked is, I examine PhD students all the time. And the first question I'll ask them is, in arriving at your research title, what did you consider? In other words, what were the options? What were the options and how did you get from your different options of different research questions down to the title that you have selected? Is there a process? We are asking you to think not as individuals, not as just students, but as scholars. Now, as a scholar, as an intellectual, you don't just, what separates you as a PhD or as a research student from the millions and billions of people out there? The fact that what you do is done through the following of a process. There's some logic, there's some rationality. This is called scholarly thinking, okay? You don't just wake up one day and say, oh, let me look at ABC. No. You say, okay, these research questions would be interesting. How do I get from these research questions to one good research question? That is a process, okay? Now, we completed the first app. We will then look at the different options, okay? From those options, we're going to capture some different ideas. I wonder, I like to call these I wonder statements. I wonder what the impact of A is on B. I wonder what the impact of diet is on hair color. I wonder what the impact of economic development is on poverty alleviation. I wonder, these are our I wonder statements. However, we cannot complete all the research that says I wonder, because we're only doing one project here, right? That is for postdoctoral. But for now, we are going to go from all our different I wonder statements down to one I wonder statement. And we're going to do it in a process that we can justify. From that, we will get, so we know who the student, who we are as students. We have some I wonder statements from which we get to one I wonder statement, which is our thesis title. We have a look at what our, incidentally, there has to be a process here, because again, in your defense of your research, you could be asked, how did you get from 3 or 4 different I wonder statements down to one? What was your process? Okay. Now, we'll get to a thesis title. We will create the title page for our research. Then we'll make some statements, thesis statements. Now, thesis statements, I won't go into much detail here, but we will deal with them in a separate session. But a thesis statement is a very important statement which should be part of your PhD thesis or your master's thesis. And basically, it's a statement of what is your current worldview? What do you currently think? And then we apply some testing. Now, you'll be surprised to know 90% of students don't even have a thesis statement. That's a very, very likely fail, because they don't even know what a thesis statement is. We will deal with it very early on. And it's easy. The point the thing you must take from this session is that everything we're going to do is easy. It just requires a bit of concentration, a bit of inspiration, and a bit of motivation to get us through our development. Now, so this is our worldview. Then we have to review some literature. Now, these apps here, which you'll see them in your list as you construct your project flow, these apps here are simply reviews of the academic literature. Now, let me tell you, many students use this Atlas, TI, NVivo, etc., these softwares to review literature. These are not literature review apps. Okay. These are simply apps that go and collect articles and dump them with you and leave you to figure it out. What this software does is it is a genuine review of the literature. I'm going to show you a process. Normally it would take a year for you to review the literature. I'm going to show you how to review literature effectively and efficiently in a matter of months. My current PhD research student spent 2 to 3 months collecting his literature, and he spent 2 weeks writing a literature review chapter because the software helped him do all the work needed, and then the literature review writes itself. We'll show you how that does it. And it's an excellent review of literature that is correctly referenced and very systematic and auditable. Okay? You imagine I give you 100 articles and say, review these articles. Where do you start? Our software process will allow you to do that virtually effortlessly. Okay? Then we have some research questions which come from the literature. In other words, any review identifies a gap, and the research question must address the gap. Often students conduct research and research questions, but they have not demonstrated that the questions themselves actually need to be addressed. If you want to address the gap, firstly, you have to identify that it's a gap. For example, for you to say, I'm interested to see what is the impact of training on employee motivation. Does training make employees more motivated for SMEs in Punjab? Well, before you do that, you need to convince me that in the body of literature that you've looked at, nobody has done that yet. Okay? So the literature review, we will show beyond the shadow of a doubt whether there is a gap or not, beyond the shadow of a doubt. And then we will show the research question that comes directly from that. So you see, our process is a very different process. We are not just interested in collecting journals. We can all do that. I'm interested to show you how the steps, do this, do this, do this, press this button, and you'll see your review come to life. Okay? You'll see your review come to life before your vendors. Then we conduct some research question. We conduct some analysis. Again, analysis is a very tricky area for students. They apply, firstly, they don't know which techniques to apply, or they will apply techniques that are inappropriate. They're looking at the correlation between A and B, but they apply some different correlation test. Well, again, we are specialists in this research techniques, wherein we will show you that if this is your research question, this has to be your research technique. This has to be your statistical technique, or this has to be your qualitative technique that you must apply. Otherwise, students take their data, they dump it into Excel, SPSS, Minitab, or any other numerical statistical software. They press the run button, and the software churns out results that look very good, beautiful tables, beautiful charts, but are in fact meaningless because the technique that's been applied is inappropriate. Remember, Excel or Minitab or SPSS will process data, but it will not tell you whether the process you've asked it to apply is the correct process. Is that statistical test the correct test? It won't tell you. Our software will tell you that if this is your research question, this and only this is the statistical test. That there has saved you 6 months of reading statistical books in the library. Okay, so we help you in that session as well. So at least you know that the test you've applied is the correct statistical test. Now, unless you're a statistician, you're stuck, because you're going to spend 6 months in the library trying to work out, how do I test this? Well, we will help you to do that, because the software helps you. It guides you. It says, if this is your research question, this is the correct method of analysis. Okay, then we generate some conclusions, and right at the end here is our dossier, our thesis dissertation, that falls out at the end, that we can take into Word and we can play with it and type up anything we further want to add. It creates its own tables of contents, all automated for you. So you're pretty much ready to submit. Print it off, bind it, and submit it, and you're all done. Okay, great. So with that, let's just have a look. The session was advertised also as having a look at some of the apps. And we'll begin with the first one. So to initiate the apps, once you've created your project flow, you click on the first app, and again, we must do the apps in a chronology. In other words, we do the first app, and then the second, then the third. We don't skip apps, because the software's algorithms are looking for work you've already done, drawing down that work and moving forward. It's an efficient way. It means that we avoid any replication, because the software, the algorithms are sufficiently intelligent to recognize that, this has been done there, this has been done there. If we take that and a bit of that, we've completed the next step. So it becomes more and more efficient as you go on. So you do the apps in the order or the chronology as stated. Now, let's have a look at the first app. Each time we click on an app, it will invite us for information. So let's have a little look. Click on candidate. And when we click, I'm going to use a terminology which is called the blue menu. The blue menu is anything down here. Okay, this is the blue menu. It's a term that I use just to identify it. And to go back in terms of navigation, to go back to your project flow, this is the project here called demonstration. I click on that. It takes me back to my project flow. So I click on the first app, candidate. And on the blue menu, I click on candidate information. I click on candidate information, and this is a student, Ahmed Al-Ansari. Now, if you click on edit, it will invite you to enter your own name. You can upload a picture if you want. You can enter your PhD registration address or your research registration address. It will invite you to enter your address here, your telephone number, email, and any other details. You're studying for a degree. This student is studying for an MBA. Okay? He's studying for an MBA in Oman. We have students around the world who we are supporting. And we have, he's in the Department of Accounting and Finance, and he's in the Faculty of Business, etc., etc. This is some other details. Complete as much information as you possibly can. And most importantly, once completed, you go right back to the top and you click on Save. Okay? And it has now saved your information. So we want to go back to our project flow, which is through the name of the project here. The name of my project is demonstration. Click on demonstration, I'm back to my project flow. Now, the next thing we're going to do is, so the candidate app here is capturing your details, who you are, the degree you are studying for, any collaborations you have, or anything like that. Incidentally, can I emphasize, even I know many students we are helping to write research papers. Even if you're writing a research paper, we begin with the same project flow. We are happy to support and co-author research papers with you. You start with the same project flow for now. There is some advanced research paper writing training coming in October. But you start with your project flow for now. You enter your details. Now, once we've completed this candidate app, I'm going to finish with this app here, fact finding. Now, what is fact finding? Many times students in their PhD or their master's defense are asked, how did you come up with this idea? Okay. Now, what is the idea from an examiner's point of view of that question? They're not interested in the idea itself. They may be, but they are more interested in, are you as a scholar, as a researcher, able to think systematically? Now, that is where our fact-finding comes. Are you one of those PhD students who woke up one day and said, I'm going to research this idea? Or are you one of those research students who said, hang on, let me think about what are my options and decide which is the best option through a process of logical, rational, scholarly thinking. So what we want to do is we want to present ourselves as having n number of ideas, 4 ideas or 5 ideas, and then from these 4 or 5 ideas to have come down to 3 to 2 to 1 idea. So how do we get from these 5 ideas to 1 idea? What is the idea is not relevant at this point. The only point here is for you to be able to demonstrate to your examiners that you have been thinking. So how do we go from 3 or 4 or 5 ideas to 1 idea? And our next app does that. It's called fact finding. Now, fact finding is simply taking several I wonder statements of potential research to one statement of research which says, I wondered about this. How do we get from all of these ideas to one? Let's have a look. So we're on the second app. When we click on fact finding, again, the blue menu, which you'll remember is the left-hand side menu. We click fact finding here. And what happens? Here, the student has written 3 statements. I'm going to show you how he has done that. Yours will be blank, but you will only see an orange button. You click on the orange button and you click on the new document. When you click on this new document, the screen opens up. Now, the screen opens up and asks you, okay, what is your I wonder statement? And that is entered in description. So here we are. I'm going to click on my new review and I'm going to rename this as I wonder what is the impact of, let us say, diet on sleep quality of, shall we say, babies. Okay. and I save that. So there's a statement I've made. I wonder what is the impact of diet on sleep quality of babies. Okay. So there's a I wonder statement. Now, if I close that, you see what's happened? I wonder if government aid impacts employee prospects. I wonder if management training improves decision making. I wonder what is the impact of increasing advertising expenditure on online sales in Oman. And this one we've just added. I wonder what is the impact of diet on sleep quality of babies. So here we've got 4 I wonder statements. After today's session, once you've constructed your project flow, you should complete the first app. And then I want you to go to fact finding. And I would like to challenge you to push you a little bit today and ask you to complete 5 fact-finding statements. Don't worry that you're not going to research them. I'm not interested in that at this point. I'm interested that if an examiner asks you which areas were interesting to you before you got from 5 to 1. I don't want you to say, oh, nothing else interested me. I had not considered any other idea. No. I want you to show the examiner, this is my fact finding. I looked at these 4 areas. And from these 4 areas, I got to 1 statement. Now, how do we get to the 1 statement? We'll come to that in just a second. Okay? We'll come to that in just a second. But I want to go back to this statement now. I click, well, just to show you, I want to go to this 4th statement, and I just want to show you how to complete that statement. When I hover close to it, the orange button opens. If I click on the orange button, I'm not going to create a new statement. I want to edit. So this is my pencil. Edit the statement. If I click on it, it takes me back to the statement I made. Now, I look at that statement. I wonder, I beg your pardon. I do beg your pardon. This is what happens when you have young children. I do beg your pardon for that. Now, I wonder, so we have our I wonder statement, but I want to just pause for 1 second. How do you see I wonder statements have a particular syntax. Now, what is syntax? Again, this is not taught at universities outside and internationally, and it needs to be for the purpose of clarity. Syntax is simply, it comes from programming. Syntax simply says that for a statement to be complete, for a statement to be valid, and in this case, we're looking at a I wonder statement. For a statement to be valid, it must have certain ingredients. So syntax means that a statement, in this case an I wonder statement, must have certain ingredients, and it must have those ingredients in a particular order. Okay? Now, what are the ingredients of a valid I wonder statement? Okay? There are 3 ingredients, and they are found here. Topic, issue, scope. Okay? I'm going to talk a bit about these now, because many students' titles of their research is invalid. It would not pass. And not in an international standard because it doesn't have the correct syntax. The syntax of a good research, or as we call it here, I wonder statement, that must have a topic, must have an issue, and it must have a scope. Okay? What they are, I'll talk about in a moment. The second thing, if you remember, I said it has the correct ingredients and it has them in the correct order. And the order is topic, issue, scope. Now, let's explore what that is. In this description here, and if I click on it, it will open up again. The topic that we are looking at there is diet. Okay? If you met somebody at a bus stop waiting for a bus to go to your university, and they just asked you, what are you looking at? What's the topic? You would say, I'm looking at diet. And then they'll say, what is the issue about diet? And you say, well, I'm interested in the impact of diet on sleep quality. So now we know the topic is diet. He then says, what's the issue? You say, well, the issue is, what is the impact of diet on sleep quality? So we now have the topic, we now have the issue. And then he says to you, what is the scope of your study? Now, when they say scope, they're asking you, what is your sample? How are you constraining? You can't look at the impact of diet on sleep quality for the whole population of the world. You have to focus it. So in this case, the scope of your study is, well, you look at the topic is the diet, The issue is the impact of diet on sleep quality. And the scope of the study is babies, or perhaps newborn babies or something like that. So what we're going to do is, there's a button there to save, icon, we click on save. And here we're going to complete topic, we click there. And the topic in 30 characters is simply one word, diet. Save. The issue, oops, I beg your pardon. I'll go back to this and click on pencil. It just takes a second to update because there are users right around the world who log onto the software daily. The issue, click on issue. The issue was sleep quality, S-L-E-E-P, quality. I beg your pardon. Issue, sleep quality, and I will save that. And what was the scope of the study? Scope of the study was babies. One word, okay, babies. And we save that, okay. You just take it a second to update. If I close it and if I go back to it, that gives it a second to just fully update. So what I've done is I've taken a I wonder statement, a fact-finding statement, and from that I've extracted the topic, diet, the issue, sleep quality, and the scope of the study is babies. Now, if you have written a fact-finding statement for which it is not clear either what the topic is, or what the issue is, or what the scope is, then your statement is misspecified. It doesn't meet the requirements of the fact-finding. Now let's just check. If I close that, let's just check. Let's have a look at number 3 for our student here. I click on the orange button and I'll click on the pencil. Let's have a look at his I wonder statement. I wonder what is the impact of increasing advertising expenditure on online sales in Oman. Let's have a little look. Well, advertising expenditure is his topic. Don't worry about the modifier too much at this point. The issue here is online sales, and the scope of his study is Oman. Let me just say something about resource 1, resource, and resource 2 and 3. These are simply, we are capturing why is the student initially interested in this. Well, according to this student, they read an article in the Times of Oman. They also read an article in the London edition of the Financial Times. And here they also read an article in the Oman Telecommunications Report. All the resources are there just to remind the student what is it that ignited their interest in the description, in the I wonder statement. Because if in the examination, your examiner says, why were you interested in this? You can say, well, I read an article in the Times, or I read a report. And you can say something in the report caught my imagination and I thought that could be interesting. You are capturing, okay? It could be something that you read in the internet, or something your professor said to you, or a conversation with somebody, or you work in the company. What I'm saying to you here is capture that, okay? Now, I will close this and I'll just check about, how about this one here? Again, click on the orange button. Let's just have a little look. Right here, I wonder if government aid impacts employee prospects in Omani SMEs, small and medium enterprises. So here, the student is wondering, all this support we get from our governments, does it improve our employment prospects? And I'm interested particularly in Omani small and medium enterprises. Now, why is he interested? Well, he read an article here in the July Economist, reported that government furlough scheme was hugely successful in helping. So he's captured why he's interested in that, because he read something somewhere. Let's just check that this I wonder statement is correctly specified. Has it got a topic? Well, whenever you want to know about this topic, issue, and scope, ask yourself, if you're standing at a bus stop with a stranger and he says to you, what is the topic of your study? You should be able to answer, it is about government aid. And he says to you, then what's the issue? What is it about government aid? Well, you're interested in the relationship with employment prospects. And then the person says to you, okay, what's the scope of your study? And you say, I'm interested in Omani SMEs. And that's what the student has done here. Government aid. The issue is employment prospects. And the scope of the study is Omani SMEs. So we're going to close that. We're not going to do any update to it. And we're going to close that. And again, go back to my project flow. And I would invite you to construct your project flow. Insert all the candidates' information. We start our fact finding where you should have 4 or 5 statements, I wonder statements. And then in the next session, we're going to look how we get from those 5 or 6 I wonder statements in a systematic, clear manner to one research title. Okay. So how do we get from here to here? Okay. And we're going to show us a way of doing that. And in your defense, you'll be able to show that I began with these ideas. And through a process, I got to this research idea. Rather than say to the examiner, I just wondered that would be interesting. That's the worst thing you can say to an examiner. That would be interesting. Why? You have to show a methodology. Now with that, that is where I'm going to leave the session for now. And I'm going to hand this session back to, I'm going to stop the screen share. And if I may hand the session back to Anand, Anand, would you mind taking over, please?
Yep, not a problem, Professor. Thank you so much for our second training with this.
For more information, see our other videos on research and thesis writing following your interests. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.